So this video is a quick one to show you how to use your wire strippers to cut the ends of the insulation off your pieces of wire so that you can build circuits on your breadboard. So to begin with, here's my breadboard, and over here beside the chip I've already added some wires. So specifically what I'm trying to do is I want to run 5 volts to the red rail along the edge of my breadboard on both sides, and I want to run ground to the blue rail. And that way I'll be able to then take wires from here into the body of my breadboard and build circuits in here that I can wire up with 5 volts and ground. Now the breadboard itself doesn't have any power, we have to pull that off of our chip. So along the edges of this red piece of circuit board, you will see on both sides, one of the pins says VDD, that's for 5 volts, and the other says ground, GRD, ground, and that's for ground obviously. So you would take a short little piece of wire and go from VDD to the red rail, anywhere along here, and from ground to the blue rail. And you do the same thing on the other side. Now these short little wires are a little fiddly to make, so I recommend that you make them last. What's a little easier is we also need some wires over on this end. We want to go from red to red and from blue to blue on this side. So we're going to connect the two sides of the breadboard together. So the wires for that will be a little bit longer and it'll be a little bit easier to cut. So I'll show you those ones. So we want our piece of red wire to go from the red rail over to the other red rail. But we also need a little bit of metal exposed on both ends so that we can plug it into the holes. So the right amount of insulation to strip off is about 3/4 of a centimeter. So 1/2 centimeter is a little bit too small, a full centimeter is a little too big. So roughly 3/4 of a centimeter. And the way in which you use your wire cutters is you place the wire in there about the right amount hanging out, squeeze them down, waggle back and forth to cut the insulation, and you should be able to just slip off the insulation like that. So now I've got a little piece of metal exposed there. And then I can measure out from the end of the insulation over to the other red rail here, and then I want, again, just about 3/4 of a centimeter on the other end. So that means I need to cut it here, which again, I can do with my wire cutters. And then again, I snip off just a little bit of insulation at the end. Now, two things can go wrong with your wire cutters. If they're adjusted so that they bite down not quite enough, then you might have trouble cutting through the insulation. The other problem is if they're adjusted so that the jaws bite down too hard, then this little piece of metal might get nicked and fall off. So either way, if you need to adjust your wire cutters, there's a screw here. That's what's acting as a stop. So if things are not adjusted right, get a screwdriver, loosen this screw up, and you can adjust it back and forth to adjust how much those jaws will close. And so now I take my little piece of wire and I'm just going to bend these bits in a little bit and press one of them firmly into the red holes over here and the other end into the red holes over here. And by the way, if you're having trouble getting it in, needle nose pliers help a lot. So now I've connected the red rail here over to the red rail here. And I would take another piece of wire, a black one, and connect the blue rail to the blue rail, exactly the same way.